Close your eyes and forget everything you know about Los Angeles. Forget the movie studios, forget the freeways, forget the Walk of Fame. Now picture a dusty little town sitting on a wide open plain under an endless California sky. Adobe houses, cattle on the hillsides and orange groves stretching as far as the eye can see. That is Los Angeles in 1880, a town of just 11,000 people with no idea what it is about to become. So I used AI to take you guys back in time, decade by decade, year by year, to watch a quiet pueblo transform into one of the most important cities in America. Before we start, if you have not subscribed yet, please hit the button now. Our story really begins a few years before 1880, because you cannot understand what happened next without understanding this moment. In 1876, the Southern Pacific Railroad finally connected Los Angeles to San Francisco by rail. Now that might not sound earth-shattering, but think about what it meant. Before this, Los Angeles was essentially cut off from the rest of the country. Getting there meant a long, grueling stagecoach ride or a months-long sea voyage around the tip of South America. The railroad changed all of that overnight. Suddenly, people and goods could move in and out of the city on steel tracks. It did not cause an immediate population explosion, but it cracked the door open, and that door was never going to close again. By 1880, Los Angeles had about 11,000 residents. The streets were unpaved and lined with a mix of old adobe buildings and newer wooden structures. Cattle ranching and small-scale farming were still the backbone of the local economy. Orange and lemon groves spread out along hand-built irrigation ditches, and the whole place had the quiet, unhurried feel of a town that did not yet know it was sitting on a gold mine. But signs of change were everywhere. In 1880, the University of Southern California was founded, giving Los Angeles its first major institution of higher education. A year later, in 1881, the Los Angeles Times began publishing, giving the city its own daily newspaper and a powerful voice that would shape public opinion for decades to come. These were not small things. A university and a newspaper meant that Los Angeles was no longer just a ranching outpost. It was starting to think of itself as a real city. And then came the invention that would change daily life for everyone. In 1882, the telephone arrived in Los Angeles, connecting homes and businesses in ways that had been unimaginable just a few years earlier. Now here is where things really take off. In 1885, the Atchison, Topeka and Santa Fe Railway completed a direct rail link from Los Angeles all the way to Chicago. This was a game changer of the highest order. For the first time, people from the Midwest and the East Coast could board a train and ride straight into the Southern California without having to go through San Francisco first. And the two competing railroads, Southern Pacific and Santa Fe, got into a vicious price war that drove ticket costs down to almost nothing. At one point in 1887, a one-way ticket from Kansas City to Los Angeles dropped to as low as $1. $1. You can imagine what happened next. Tens of thousands of people flooded into the city. Land developers went into overdrive, advertising the region in newspapers across the country and even in Europe. They painted pictures of a sun-soaked paradise where oranges grew year-round and the weather never turned cold. Settlers, speculators and dreamers poured off the trains and started buying up land as fast as they could. Entire new neighbourhoods sprang up almost overnight. By 1886, electric streetlights were illuminating downtown streets, replacing the old gas lamps. And by the late 1880s, streetcars and cable cars were rattling through the city, replacing the slow-moving mule-drawn wagons that had been the main form of transportation. Picture yourself walking down Spring Street in 1886. You hear the clatter of cable cars and see newly built Victorian hotels rising along the block. Palm trees are being planted at the corners, and well-dressed families wave from the porches of freshly painted homes. This was a city bursting with energy, a place that felt more like a fairground than a frontier town. Big dreams were taking root in every direction. But all that wild growth came at a price. By 1888, the speculative real estate bubble burst. Land prices that had been skyrocketing suddenly collapsed. Investors who had borrowed heavily to buy property found themselves underwater. Businesses closed, construction projects stalled, and thousands of newcomers who had arrived expecting easy money packed up and left. A nationwide economic downturn made things even worse. Los Angeles, which had been growing at a breakneck pace, suddenly hit the brakes. It was a painful lesson, but it was not a fatal one. The people who stayed were the ones who believed in the city's long-term future, not the get-rich-quick speculators. And they were right to stay, because what came next proved that Los Angeles had something far more valuable than inflated land prices. It had resources. sunshine, and location, and those things were not going anywhere. By the early 1890s, Los Angeles was picking itself up off the ground. The population, which had reached about 50,000 by 1890, started climbing again as agriculture intensified across the region. The city was surrounded by citrus groves, vineyards, and wheat fields that fed a growing national appetite for California produce. Oranges from Los Angeles were being shipped by rail to dinner tables in New York and Chicago, and the image of Southern California as a land of abundance was spreading across the country. Then in 1892, something happened that would reshape the city's economy in ways nobody fully anticipated. The first commercial oil well was drilled in Los Angeles. Within a few years, oil derricks began sprouting up across the landscape, even near downtown. Land that had been covered in orange trees was now punctuated by tall wooden rigs pumping crude oil out of the ground. For the first time, Los Angeles had a heavy-hitting industry of its own, one that brought serious wealth and thousands of new jobs. The oil boom gave the city a financial backbone that agriculture alone could never have provided. By the mid-1890s, the transformation was impossible to ignore. Oil money was flowing into the city, and the population was surging. Imagine walking through downtown Los Angeles in 1896. Smoke from nearby oil pumps drifts across the hillsides, and electric-powered streetcars zip past you, carrying passengers dressed for city life. Storefronts display crates of oranges and bottles of wine made from locally grown grapes. You overhear someone at a corner cafe talking excitedly about a water pipeline being planned to bring mountain water down from the Owens Valley, a project they believe will guarantee the city's future growth for generations. By the time the decade closed, Los Angeles had more than doubled in size. The 1900 census would count roughly 102,000 people living in the city, a nearly tenfold increase from just 20 years earlier. New infrastructure was going up everywhere. Streets were being paved, bridges were being built across the Los Angeles River, and the city government was annexing surrounding communities to expand its borders. Los Angeles was no longer a small town with big ambitions. It was becoming a genuine American city. As the new century dawned, Los Angeles carried a confident, forward-looking energy. The population stood out at about 102,000. The streets were lit by electricity, and telephones connected homes and businesses across the city. Newspapers like the Los Angeles Times were declaring that the city was entering its great period, and for once the hype was not exaggerated. In 1902, the Pacific Electric Railway opened for business. This was not just another streetcar line. It was an ambitious interurban electric rail network designed to connect Los Angeles to dozens of surrounding communities across the region. At its peak, the Pacific Electric would become the largest electric railway system in the world, knitting together a sprawling collection of towns into a single interconnected metropolis. It was the system that gave Los Angeles its signature sprawl, and it all started right here at the turn of the century. And then, almost quietly, something happened in 1904 that nobody paid much attention to at the time. The first motion picture was produced in Los Angeles. It was nothing spectacular by later standards, just a short film shot in the bright California sunlight. But it was a hint, a tiny seed planted in fertile soil. Filmmakers were beginning to notice that Los Angeles offered something no other American city could match: year-round sunshine, diverse landscapes, and cheap open land to build on. Meanwhile, the city kept building. In 1905, the Los Angeles and Salt Lake Railroad connected the city northward, adding yet another rail line to the growing network. The streetcar system expanded further, and new residential neighborhoods pushed outward in every direction. By 1907, city planners had approved the most ambitious infrastructure project in Los Angeles history, the Los Angeles Aqueduct. Designed to carry water over 200 miles from the Owens Valley to the city, it was a massive engineering undertaking that would not be completed until 1913. But the approval alone sent a powerful signal. Los Angeles was not going to let a limited local water supply stand in the way of its growth. The city was planning for a future far bigger than anything it had yet achieved. That same year, small film studios and independent filmmakers were already setting up to shop around the city, drawn by the clear skies, the varied scenery, and the distance from Thomas Edison's patent enforcers back east. They were a scrappy, resourceful bunch, shooting short films on shoestring budgets in borrowed locations. Nobody called it an industry yet, but the foundations were being laid. Infrastructure kept pace too. Streets were being paved with concrete, and small factories producing garments, sugar and hardware were clustering around the downtown core. A modest skyline of 5- and 6-story buildings was beginning to take shape, giving downtown Los Angeles its first real sense of vertical ambition. Now we reach the final stretch of our story, and it is a big one. In 1909, the small, once separate town of Hollywood voted to merge with Los Angeles. The reason was practical. Hollywood needed access to the city's water supply and sewer system. But the consequences were historic. By folding Hollywood into its borders, Los Angeles absorbed the very neighborhood that would soon become the entertainment capital of the world. That same year, the Los Angeles harbor at San Pedro finally opened after a long and bitter political battle known as the Free Harbor Fight. The city had fought for years to establish its own deepwater port, and now it had one. Goods and people could arrive by ship from across the Pacific, making Los Angeles a true international gateway. By 1910, the population had exploded to roughly 319,000 people. The city had electric lights, telephones, paved streets, an expanding streetcar network, a working harbour, and rail connections to every corner of the country. The story of Los Angeles from 1880 to 1910 is one of relentless, almost unbelievable transformation. In just 30 years, it went from a dusty little pueblo of 11,000 people to a booming cosmopolitan city of over 300,000. Los Angeles was a city built on sunshine, ambition, and the unshakable belief that tomorrow would always be bigger and brighter than today. Thanks for watching this video. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe before leaving this video, and let me know in the comments which city you'd like to explore next. See you in the next video.